This is It Prophecy here on Israel National Radio, and you can email me at messiahhour@gmail.com. Again, a very exciting week that we're going on every day, and this is obviously a very, very important topic. Now, Theodore, a lot of people listening to this program are in the United States, and they are probably thinking to themselves, or they may be thinking, that's very sad what's going on, this is very scary, but I'm in the United States, I'm safe. Perhaps not so necessarily. Talk about the Ferguson riots, because you seem to think there's more than perhaps meets the eye, or more, again, that's being reported on mainstream media. So tell us about the Ferguson riots.
Well, I remember a few days ago in CNN, there was an interview that came out. They were interviewing a guy named Omar Ali, and they said he's one of the organizers behind the Ferguson activism that was taking place for the cause of Michael Brown, who was killed by this police officer. And I was watching this video, and he is saying that we are, we're going to make our voices heard, and really speaking of, I could say mob violence. And the interviewer said, well, listen, there are thousands of evidences that the court has released, thousands of documents that the court has released, vindicating this officer. Why don't you read all those evidences and then make your decision after that? And he said, well, we don't care. Don't tell us what to do in our town. I know. It's like, wait a second. His name is Bassem Masri. It's a Muslim name. And so I got to dig deeper into this. So I began to dig deeper into this, and I found out all of the Muslim involvement around the activism, around the rioting that was taking place in Ferguson. For example, there were many Muslim groups. One of them is called Muslims in Ferguson, or Muslims for Ferguson. And then you also have leaders of the Council of American Islamic Relations. In fact, CARE, which is a Council of American Islamic Relations, they went so far as to say Michael Brown is a Muslim and he is a shaheed. He is a martyr for Islam. And he was never Muslim. Why would they go out of their way to say this? Because they want to use the mobs, because there's a huge Muslim community also in Ferguson, but they want to use the mobs as a means to execute a jihad. You also have a mosque leader named Imam Luqman Amin Abdullah, and he is also involved in this activism. Not only that, but you also have Abdullah Dawood Walid, who is executive director of CARE in Michigan, being a part of this. You also have Anthony Merrill, who was a Muslim in Ferguson. Naji Fakhruddin Adams, who was Muslim in Ferguson, involved in this. And you also have Naji, another Muslim named Naji, who is a reformed. He was a gang leader and all that, but now he's become kind of a leader in the community, and he's also involved. He calls him Brother Naji. There's Jennings. There's Talal, another guy named Talal. They call him Brother Talal. But they're all working with this man named Omar Ali, and he is also working with a guy named Anthony Shaheed, and he works with a major group called the Tawheed Youth Group and the Masjid Tawheed. Tawheed, for those of you who don't know, means Unitarianism, rejection of the Trinity. And this is all going on in Ferguson. Very few people were talking about it. All of this Muslim involvement. Then I found a video of a guy named Omar Ali. He is one of the head organizers of the rioting taking place in Ferguson, of the dissension, of the civil disobedience. I wouldn't call it civil, but the dissension taking place. Anyway, he released a video a couple of days ago, and I found it. And nobody picked up on it. I was surprised. But he had the Islamic flag right behind him. Right behind him. The Shahadatan, there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. And he was saying, oh, praise be to Allah, we will go against the police, we do not fear bullets, we do not fear bombs. And then he starts comparing the people in Ferguson to the people in Gaza. And he's saying, like the people of Gaza who are under the occupation of Israel, we do not fear bullets, we do not fear bombs, we don't fear anything, we fear no man, we don't fear any police. And then he starts saying, we will fight them like Muhammad fought in the Battle of Badr. And for those of you who don't know, the Battle of Badr was the first major battle that Muhammad won against the Arab pagans. It was really the first battle in Islamic history, period. And it's in the Hadith. It's one of the holy battles of Muhammad. And he is comparing the rioting in Ferguson to the Battle of Badr. Whoa, he's making Islamic references and connecting these Islamic references, Islamic history, to the rioting in Ferguson. This is a jihad. And then you have another Muslim, the one who was in CNN. His name is Bassem Masri. Video of him going in front of the police saying, F you, I support Hamas openly. We have this all on tape. It's all in the article. I support Hamas. You guys, he's telling the officers, you guys were trained by Israel. And then saying that he openly supports the terrorist group of Hamas. And then there's another interview of him that I posted up, with him with a black T-shirt that says, demilitarize the police. And he's telling the police officers in one video, what's going to happen when we take away your gun? We take away your badge. In other words, they want to weaken the police. So I believe that it's quite obvious what's taking place. They want to cause enough violence to compel the state to make measures that would really further neutralize the police. Notice there's one video of Bassem Masri telling the police officers, none of you guys are safe. Not you nor your children. This is a threat. Now, no police officer would ever tolerate this. No police officer would ever tolerate threats like this. Why were the police just standing there as this man was threatening them? I believe that there was some sort of injunction from the government stating that they could not really show harsh resistance or show efficient enough resistance against this mob violence. So there's most definitely, we know for a fact there's an Islamic connection. We know for a fact that they are Muslims using this as a jihad. We know this from their own admissions. And he even says in the video, Omar Ali even says in the video, Alhamdulillah, all praise be to Allah. What does this have to do with Allah? I thought just some guy was shot. In other words, they're using this killing, they're using the hatred that a lot of these socialist or anarchist leaders are using. They're using that anger to execute a jihad as a means for jihad, because they definitely see this as a jihad.
Well, so my question would be, who in the government and why would tell the police not to act and not to defend themselves? Yeah. That seems very strange. So could you comment on that?
Well, again, it's just my own suspicions, because in America you can't threaten a cop.
Right.
You and I both know. You walk to a cop and you say you're not going to be safe, they're going to arrest you. So I'm thinking it's obvious that it could have been Eric Holder, could have been Barack Obama himself. I can't really say. I read somewhere that the mayor of Ferguson wanted to bring in the National Guard,
right, and
that they for that day they did not allow the National Guard to come in. Now the National Guard is there, but for that specific day, which was day before yesterday, they said no National Guard, no, they're not going to come. So it just doesn't make any sense to me. There must have been somebody from the top telling them you can't come, because I know American officers. They don't tolerate crap. You go and tell them your children aren't going to be safe tonight, and they will arrest you. And then you have the state of Oklahoma, which is very interesting. You have sporadic violence taking place in Oklahoma. You have one black Muslim convert to Islam behead a woman who was Christian, I believe, because she refused to convert to Islam. This happened in Oklahoma. A woman was beheaded, and we just kind of focused on it for a couple of days, and that was it. A woman was beheaded in public. Why? Because she refused to convert to Islam. And then you had another story of another black Muslim who got arrested, was arrested by the FBI, working at an elderly care center in Oklahoma, the same city, Oklahoma City, the same area this beheading happened. And there was a woman there who was working, and a fellow employee, and she said, well, why does ISIS behead people? And this Muslim, he was from Kenya, he said, well, this is part of Islam. This is part of our religion. And then he says, if I could, I'd behead you, he tells this woman. Well, she reports it to the police, and he gets arrested on terrorism charges. And then just a couple days ago, in the same city in Oklahoma, an African-American man who was Christian is doing charity work for his community. And he goes into a Muslim man's apartment to give him clothes and some food. This is the kind of work that they do. And he notices that this man is Muslim. So the Christian begins to kind of trying to witness to him. And they get into this theological debate. and over the Bible and the Quran. And the Muslim gets in such a frenzy that he takes out a knife and he stabs this man several times. Doesn't kill him. What happens is that, it's kind of a funny story, but what happens is that his mother, the Christian man's mother, was present. She takes out a bat and she starts swinging at this guy, so she really rescues her son. But he was stabbed several times. This happened in Oklahoma. And then also in Oklahoma, you had, I'm not sure this was in Oklahoma, but I believe it was actually in Oklahoma. There was a guy who beheaded somebody. And they said that he was just some kind of a lunatic. Well, I did an investigation. I found this guy's Facebook and did further investigation, and he had all this sort of admiration for the Islamic religion. So, well, this guy likes Islam on his Facebook, praises Islam on his Facebook. And then you had a guy in North Carolina. Now, this was a very weird case. He murdered 2 people, shot them. They said that he was a part of a cult of some sort, a Pazuzu cult. If you see the movie The Exorcist, he worshipped Pazuzu. He called himself Pazuzu al-Jarad. That's what they called him, and I couldn't find his real name. Anyway, I found his Facebook page, and I noticed when the media released photos of his house, I noticed there was Arabic script in several rooms of the house. Some of it unlegible, couldn't understand, but it was Arabic script. I went into his Facebook page, and I did a whole report on this. Found he was connected, and he was really part of several Islamic jihadist groups in Syria. And he was even part of a group called I believe it was called the Brigade of Islamic Sharia in Syria. And there were several other terrorist groups that he was linked to on Facebook. Not only that, but he was communicating with some of these jihadists on his Facebook. And he was communicating them in Arabic. And we actually had them translated. It was Arabic. And this man was writing in Arabic. And he was speaking in Arabic. He was talking about how much he admires these terrorists, how much he hates Bashar al-Assad, how much he loves this jihad that's taking place in Syria. I think, well, this guy was not only part of a cult, but he was a jihadist right there in North Carolina. And so they're right in our midst, and most people just don't want to do the research to recognize it. But it's right here. It's right here in Ferguson. It's right here in Oklahoma. In Texas, they even had a shooting at Fort Hood. I'm sure you know about that.
Sure.
And they shot 9 people. And we actually did an event in Texas, in Kylene, in the city that it took place. Believe it or not, when we did the event, before we were advertising the event, it was a memorial event. We had several speakers come and all that. And the city hall of Kylene was trying to prevent us from advertising it. In fact, they were trying to prevent the event from happening. They couldn't because of free speech, but they went out of their way to try to prevent it. And there were several people who were so scared who said that they wanted their money back when they bought tickets. They wanted their money back because they said, well, we're scared that Muslims will shoot the event up. And the city hall was saying the same thing. They were worried about violent repercussions that could take place. Well, whatever happened to that phrase, don't mess with Texas?
Right.
It just repeated itself in Kylene. You had this horrific massacre. We went to Kylene, and we saw the massive amounts of liberalism that was taking place. They have this huge Muslim community in Kylene with a mosque and everything there. And I'm thinking, well, this is your problem right here.
Again, this is Isn't Prophecy here on Israel National Radio. And also the show will be on YouTube under the Messiah Hour. You can email me at messiahhour@gmail.com. Let's go to a story that's on your website, and everyone should check out this website, shoebat.com. It's spelled SHOEBAT.com. The Benghazi Select Committee, a lot of people want to know why. It's been very slow moving. Not a lot's really been done about what happened. Give us your thoughts on the Benghazi Select Committee and all the things surrounding it.
Well, it's very obvious what happened in Benghazi. You had several tons of weaponry that was transported from Turkey into Libya. These weapons were brought in by the Obama administration. In fact, there was 2 Navy SEALs who produced a book leaking out all this information. I remember reading about it last year. And there was several tons of weapons going into Libya, and the American government didn't want to make it so obvious, so they put it into Turkey, and the Turkish government transported it into North Africa, Libya. Well, after that was done with, they moved the weapons from Libya into Syria. And those weapons were given to the hands of the FSA. In fact, there was an official from Washington who wanted to go anonymous. He didn't want his name mentioned. But he said, yes, we are transporting weapons into Syria. And then he said something very interesting. He said, but the people who are taking the weapons are the ones that we don't want taking the weapons. In other words, talking about jihadists. And the American government thinks that they can actually work with the FSA because they're the more moderate crowd. They're the more moderate group of people. And when the FSA has been found guilty of really the same things that ISIS has been doing, rape, massive rape, in fact, destruction of churches, killing of Christians, all these things, they're very much like al-Nusra. The difference between the FSA and ISIS is that ISIS wants to establish the Islamic State now. FSA wants to kill Bashar al-Assad and then establish the Islamic State. That's the only difference between the two of them. Now, the American government, of course, does not want this information out. They don't want it out. They don't want this known. Now you have people in both Republicans and the Democratic side that's admitting to this. Now in fact, it was actually a really interesting story. ISIS actually once said that they thank John McCain for helping start the war with Iraq, because the war in Iraq was a disastrous decision, despite all the Republicans who may disagree with me, because they got rid of Saddam Hussein. Saddam was keeping order in that country. He was brutal, but he had to be brutal to deal with these people. And once they got rid of him, that enabled all of these jihadist groups to formulate. So if it wasn't for the war in Iraq, there would be no ISIS. ISIS is part of the legacy of the war in Iraq. So here's ISIS saying, we thank John McCain for starting this. And the whole thing in Benghazi really was a cover-up. The whole thing in Benghazi was a cover-up because they were giving weapons to the Libyans. Not only that, but in Sudan, which is a huge supporter of terrorism, especially the Al-Shabaab terrorist group, which just killed 28 Christians. Obama had a huge argument, or really he chewed out the president of South Sudan. The president of South Sudan is Christian. His name is Keir Silva, and he was sending in weapons to rebels in North Africa, in North Sudan, to get rid of the president of North Sudan, who was a supporter of terrorism. His name is Omar al-Bashir. And those weapons were being given by the the Christian South Sudanese government. The North Sudanese government complained to Obama, saying the South is giving these rebels weapons and they're going to get rid of our government. Now, don't forget, this government is terrorist and they're Islamic. The Council of Foreign Relations stated that Obama personally contacted Salva Kiir, the Christian leader who was giving weapons to these rebels, and screamed at him vindictively, saying, you better stop giving weapons to the rebels. Now, hold on a second now. Here you have the U.S. government giving weapons to Islamic jihadists. And even before the U.S. government made it known that they were giving lethal weapons to these rebels, they already made it known that they were giving semi-automatic weapons and grenades to the FSA. They made that very clear. And here's the question is, why is Obama preventing a revolution in North Sudan, which would get rid of a true evil Islamic dictator? And at the same time, he's supporting a revolution against Gaddafi, against Bashar al-Assad, against Mubarak in Egypt, which are secular dictators who aren't establishing Sharia, who aren't establishing jihad, and yet he's supporting jihadists. This is not a coincidence. Obama's brother, Malik Obama, works for the North Sudanese government. And what? In the Sudanese Dawah organization, the Dawah organization of Sudan. Saeed, I believe his name is Musa Obama. He is the cousin of Barack Obama. He was on Al Jazeera talking about making Sharia schools in Kenya. And then he did an interview with a newspaper. I believe it was a Saudi newspaper. And he was saying, we are working for the de-Christianization of Kenya. They want to get rid of all the missionaries. They want to get rid of all the churches, all of the Christian schools. So here's Obama stopping a revolution against somebody who his brother works with. Here is Obama giving weapons to jihadists who want to Islamize and de-Christianize the Middle East. And here is Obama's cousin wanting to de-Christianize Africa. So it looks like the whole Obama family is in the business of de-Christianizing.
Wow, we'll have to leave it on that point for now. Fascinating stuff. We're out of time. It's a shame. We're going to have you back because this is great stuff. Everyone, want to check out more of the news that some of the mainstream media is not reporting, go to shoebat.com, shoebat.com. And again, my guest has been the Communication Director of Rescue Christians, Theodore Shoebat. And Theodore, thank you so much. Great knowledge of, we need people to know what's going on. I think a lot of people are not knowing the truth, and we appreciate you telling us some of that today. And again, we look forward to having you on in the future, so thank you so much.
Anytime. God bless you, sir.
Sure. Thank you so much. Be well there. All right. I wanted to give a special shout out to Sandra Marcantonio for helping me set up that interview. That is the end of today's program. Remember, a reminder that this show is going to air Sunday through Thursday, B'ezrat Hashem, at 5 p.m. Israel time, 10 a.m. on the East Coast, and there'll be podcasts of the show as well. So take a look at the website to check out all that. The email is messiahhour@gmail.com, and this show relies on contributions from fans just like yourself, from listenership just like yourself. So if you could email me, messiahhour@gmail.com, and we have a PayPal set up at israelsportsradio@yahoo.com. If you want to give a donation, any amount will help. High, $18, 36 too high, whatever might help. Well, anything will help, I should say. Whatever feels comfortable for you, because that's how the show continues. That's how we would be able to continue to do it every day, and that is my goal, of course. I've said that for a long, long time. So thank you for listening. Stay tuned tomorrow. Again, 5 p.m. Israel time, 10 a.m. on the East Coast. God bless, and good day.